In today's podcast of Data for All, AI and Chat GPT. Welcome to the Data for All podcast. I'm Charlie Apigian.
And I'm Charlie Yulin, where we want to empower you to think different with data.
Yeah, and that's right. And you know what? I'm reading off the script, but I'm going to stop. I'm going to put and make Charlie uncomfortable here for a second and just start. And
You going hard left immediately?
why not?
Okay.
The whole point of us with these kind of episodes is to just be ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. So we, just for people at home, we usually have the first 30 seconds scripted, and usually it takes us like 3 or 4 times because the other Charlie screws it up every time. Mm-hmm. But today we're just going to go right into our conversation because that seems to be what we know how to do best.
And what are we going to be talking about briefly?
Oh, and we will be talking about AI and Chat GPT, mostly on the Chat GPT side. We're not going to get super technical, Charlie. Mm-hmm. I promise I won't get too much into supervised learning, reinforcement learning, and unsupervised, and why Chat GPT 3, or actually just GPT 3, which Chat GPT is based on, is so powerful because of supervised learning and the transformer models that there are. I'm going already down that rabbit hole. Yeah. But before I go down that rabbit hole, we brought in a good friend of ours now, and actually a very, very good friend of mine who I look up to as a mentor. I'm building this person up, but when he starts talking, you'll realize he's nothing special. No, I'm kidding, of course. And has one of the best laughs out there. But our good friend, Paul Vinton from Down Under. Paul, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, g'day, Charlie, and thanks for having me.
And you know what? Because I know you'll be too humble, I'm just going to, Charlie, can I brag on Paul a little bit?
Oh,
I'm just along for a ride at this point.
All right. So I won't go too much
You've
into...
never been along for a ride, from what I hear, Charlie.
Paul, let me brag on you for a second.
Far away.
So the only thing good about him, Paul honestly is somebody that in Australia currently resides in Adelaide, which is Southern Australia. Is that correct?
Yeah, South Australia.
But you're originally from the West.
Yeah, born in Western Australia, right up the northwest of Western Australia in a place called Carnarvon, which you will have never heard of, but it's about 600 miles north of Perth.
Gotcha.
So right in the middle of the bush.
Yeah.
So.
And spent his early days. I'm going to make you tell me a little hacker story here in a second. But for the last few years or so, has really been on the information and communications technology sector, doing a lot of amazing things. And for the last little venture, I think was Vintech.
Yeah, correct.
What was Vintech?
Little venture.
Yeah, so Vintech was a managed services company. So we did lots of clients around Australia and overseas. And then that was a national firm over in Australia. And then we had Intervolve, which is a national data center business. And then Cloud Central, which is a national cloud business.
Mm-hmm. And recently had a little bit of a buyout or finally sold out so he could help me change the world.
Over here to change the world now.
That's right.
Sold to some American VC-backed guys called New Era Technology. Mm-hmm. And that closed at the end of September 2020. Yeah. And then I left the firm after an earn-out period, middle of January 2021.
And let me just tell you.
2022.
In the companies, in terms of like data centers in Australia, you had a couple of...
so we had one that we owned, and the rest of them we rented a huge amount of space in data centers around Australia. We had 11 data centers in Australia that we rented space in Auckland and Singapore. And then we also had our own 10 gig pipes between the major data centers.
Excellent.
So we ran our own pipes everywhere, and then
you physically built the infrastructure.
We didn't run the fibre, so we rented the fibre because it's so far between the capital cities. But in terms of the cloud infrastructure and everything in there, yes, we built all of that.
That's cool.
And then one of the data centers, we've built all of that and put it all together and going through a program at the moment. I still own that building, and we're doing a chiller upgrade at the moment. So. There's another $1.5 million I didn't need. So
Here it goes.
It's important to keep data centers cool, and especially in hot environments.
Which is Australia, of course, is a reasonably hot environment. So
I hear it gets warm there sometimes.
Just every now and again. Yeah. Depends where you go. Hello from the folks from Coober Pedy, if you're ever listeling.
Well, hey, if we can get some Australian listeners, we'll take it. So, Paul, you got to work on that for us.
I'll put the word out.
I love it. And let me do also. During that time, you've helped be a strategist for several people, whether it be companies,
Yes.
even politicians in Australia.
Yeah, I was an advisor for some Australian senators. I'm one of 2 advisors for the South Australian government. I'm on the Industry Skills Council for South Australia. So yeah, there's a sort of a bit of a list that's a bit long. We did a world first with IBM. We were first in Australia to deploy lots of different technologies. We won lots of national awards. So
And
with big
you, yes, and you happened to win the EY Entrepreneur of the Year back in 2015.
vendors. Yes, with Ernst & Young in 2015,
right.
correct?
Tell that
quite
story,
funny.
by the way. Go ahead.
that
This is a
was-
good one.
Which bit about it?
Well, where were you when you won?
Oh, yeah. Well, it was. I was nominated by Australia's largest bank, called the Commonwealth Bank, and I was so convinced that I was no chance that I said to them I wouldn't fill out the form. So I got Lisa, who ran the Commonwealth private area. She came and said, "Well, I'll fill out the form for you." So she came over and sat in my office and filled out the form, and then I did that, and then we all did the stuff, and then one of the other guys who was being nominated for some stuff said, "Let's have a bet that whoever wins has to take everyone out to a really expensive restaurant." And I said, "Well, I'm in because I'm not going to win."
Yeah.
And then Commonwealth Bank guys came across and said, "Are you going to be here?" I said, "No, I'm in New Orleans with IBM." And they said, "Please be here." And I said, "Well, unless you tell me I'm going to win, I'm not going to win. So I'm going to New Orleans." So in the last minute, I wrote this speech for my son and said, "By the way, Andrew, his name is, and I'm sure Andrew's going to listen to this." And so I wrote a speech for Andrew, and he went along to the awards, along with Leanne, my wife, and some other friends. And I was in a hotel in New Orleans, and of course I won, so Andrew had to go up and receive the award. And I said, "What you need to do is at least take a photo from the stage." So he snuck a selfie stick in there and took a photo from the stage, and that made the front page of the Advertiser down there. And
Isn't that great?
which was really cool. So yes, I won it in New Orleans, having been convinced, and then had to spend a heck of an amount of money on a lunch that I never thought I'd have to do.
Didn't think you were going to have to buy that
Never thought I was
meal,
gonna have to
right?
do that.
That's great.
So the big question is, like, how did he do with the speech, though?
Oh, he did phenomenal.
Nice.
Yeah, he did
course he
much
did.
better than I would have done. I would have rambled off onto different things all over the place and taken the mickey out of everyone.
So it
right.
worked out.
It worked out really good. Yeah, it was really
Yeah,
good.
and
And
so-
he looked better than I did too.
Yeah, and so since his finishing out his time with fintech and your other companies, you've been in the United States, just trying to figure out ways to make a difference, and that's where we really bonded. And
Correct, yeah.
and he's been spending some time at Belmont, and we obviously, being that he's the tech guy, and I'm obviously in that space as well. We just hit it off because we really have this dying desire to change the world, and we don't know what that
Yeah.
means, but when you get 2 people together, man, we're just having a ball.
Oh, we're loving it. Absolutely loving it. It's been heaps of fun so far.
Yeah, I'll tell one last
only the
story,
start.
and then I'm going to ask you to tell me some stories about your hacking days.
Okay.
And then we're going to get into Chat GPT. Actually, and we're going to get into toe spreaders.
I thought we'd forgot about this.
No.
Don't worry, we're not going past the toe spreaders.
I thought we had managed.
Paul
to get
has
past
no
it
idea
without
what we're
him
I
talking
don't even
about.
know what a toe spreader is.
Well,
All right, well,
that's
there's
what.
no good time,
Yeah.
no better time than now.
Yeah.
Are you even allowed to talk about it? Is it illegal? I'm sure in Australia
All
it'd be
right.
illegal.
It's, it is a form of
Let's just
torture.
go there. Well, again, just for everybody that's in the listening world, I can't remember. It was processing your data,
Who
which
knows?
was episode 13. So it was just 2 episodes ago, and all of a sudden, Charlie just out of the blue says, "I got something I want to talk about here today,"
Did you
and
have to
it
get that off
was.
your chest. Is that what it was?
I asked you earlier if you'd never heard about it, and I was being a bit pretentious because up until a month ago I'd never heard about toe spreaders either.
Oh no!
Nobody in this room believes you.
Yeah, it was a month ago. We talked about it,
Yeah.
right? It was a month ago.
So I had just ordered them, I think.
You would just, I think, put them on for the first time. So I think they were like literally on. What's a toe spreader?
Okay, so here in the
put
U.S.
toe
at
spreaders
least, I don't know if it's the same across the world. Like we make narrow shoes.
No, we have standards.
Okay. So buying wide shoes is difficult, and so I have wide feet, and so my entire life I've worn narrow shoes, and so my toes are crunched up. And then I just learned what bunions actually are, and that if I don't do anything about it, in my 60s, I'm going to be bunion heavy.
Right.
And so I went down the YouTube rabbit hole of learning about like bunions, foot health, like all of that kind of stuff. And then the general consensus is buy wider shoes and use some toe spreaders because my pinky toe is underneath my like underneath my
Because-
fourth toe because I'm
you're-
cramped in.
Yeah, they've been
To
too
the shoes.
squashed.
Because
Right.
he's been wearing female
they're
shoes
actually-
for all these years. I don't know. No, just kidding.
So they're actually a medical device.
They're not. I wouldn't say that they're medical, but they're meant to like help. And so, like, I don't know if you've ever done yoga before, but if you're doing yoga, and the thing we were talking about is
Yeah, I'm a
from
big
140
yoga guy.
I look like a
extensions.
person who does a lot of yoga.
Yeah.
You never can tell. You never can tell. And so, like, I don't have the ability to splay my toes. And it's actually better now because that's the whole reason he's bringing it up, because he wants to know.
I want to know. I want the update on the toes.
So last time I had the toe spreaders, which
That's
are
right.
silicone little inserts. Like
Yeah.
it's like I put it on like a
Yeah.
They go
like a
between
Mr.
the toes.
like a Mr. T ring,
Right.
Where it's
Yeah.
you know what Mr. T is. Yeah. So it's a Mr. T
The
ring.
brass
It goes on
knuckles,
all
kinda
four
like that.
toes.
Watch the
Yeah.
A-Team.
There you
Yeah,
go.
that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you don't know that either. It's like, what do you guys get up to in Australia? And so
Apart from koalas and kangaroos and
That's it.
and
That's it.
yeah, and all that sort of stuff. Snakes.
exactly,
Yeah.
snakes. Yeah.
Snakes.
So
he was teaching me how to say snakes this morning.
That's right.
So,
but I didn't have my shoes yet, and so I finally got the shoes with the wider toe box, so you can see
Cool.
that these are. I'm showing everybody here.
Yes,
that
I
these are
know.
wider. I'm actually
It will
wearing-
definitely be a YouTube video. You showing your feet. Yeah, sure.
I'm actually wearing the toe spreaders in the shoes right now, and I just started that yesterday.
Oh.
And my feet were already getting into like a better shape.
Yeah.
Before, because I would just wear them casually around the house with bare feet. But I went on a mile walk with them yesterday, and I took my shoes off immediately because it hurt. That's why I was saying it's kind of a torture device. Is because my little pinky toe is just like, please stop
when
all
you
of
said
this.
toe spreaders and torture device, I mean, my mind was just going to all sorts of
Yeah,
different
I
places.
know.
Oh yeah, I mean it's. If you want to hurt somebody, you can put some toe spreaders on them and not let them take them off.
Yeah, I'm just going through my list at the moment, all the ones I'm going to buy for a present.
Toe spreaders.
Well, so
Charlie's at the top of that list, I think.
What?
well, he told me he could splay his toes,
Hey.
and my kids can, and my wife
Yeah.
can, and like I
And
can't
you can't.
move my outside toes, and so like I've been working on that. Like I've been flexing and retracting and wearing these toe spreaders and taking a walk, and it's actually working out. And so my bigger
cool.
toe is getting more in line with where it
Wow.
should be, and my little toes are coming out from underneath each other. And so that's completely useless information for what we're talking about.
Yeah,
No, but
that's all right.
but
That's
that's
okay.
pretty cool.
So I think we talked about that. We also talked about me getting into my new house. Can I tell you my great story?
Yeah, you
from
were
yesterday?
you were moving in the last time we talked about
Okay,
it, or you were
so,
about to.
So I'm in, and actually, the person that helped me break in the house really in a good way, which is one of the things that we've kind of bonded over is. And everybody knows that we have had an episode on data in bourbon, so you know that we know what bourbon is.
I'm sorry.
And yes, well, but Paul helped me break in. I think you're.
bourbon helped.
Yeah.
Helped me. I don't know if it
Yes.
helped anybody else.
Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize again for the way that we acted in that episode.
Did it go downhill really fast? I
There-
noticed that Charlie didn't bring any of the bourbon that I bought.
To this?
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's in the car.
Oh,
Wait.
really? Is it really? Oh, there you go. It's in the car.
I did bring it for that reason, but I forgot to bring it in. But
I mean, if we're about to pause it,
no.
Well, I think we should pause. I think, yeah.
See, here he goes again. He goes right back to it. So we are talking about me, Paul, right now, and
and getting into the house.
and getting into the house. And anyways, he was gracious enough to come over, brought a wonderful bottle of I think that
Beautiful
was-
house, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate
Yeah.
that. A lot of
I haven't
stairs.
seen it yet.
Yeah.
Oh, you haven't?
Well,
You
I
haven't been
tried to
invited?
get you over.
It's the toe spreaders. That's what it is.
They're very off-putting, apparently.
But the fun stuff is we live right next to this, really close to the soccer field.
Oh, yeah.
And so yesterday was the home opener. So again, we're recording this a little bit early.
Jam-packed there. So.
Oh, it was fantastic. And so we have new seats. And so we bought 3 this year because my son likes to go. And so we're less than a half mile from the stadium, which you obviously know where that is. Charlie does not. But we'll change that. We'll change it.
Yeah.
Not from a lack of invites, but you know, we're getting there. He's looking on the background and goes, he hasn't invited me. We were supposed to do data in bourbon together at the house.
Oh, that is true.
Yes,
That is true.
yes, you did have an
But
invite.
then I had the wherewithal to decide to not drive to a location to do that.
Like-
Well, anyways, we went to the game yesterday. It was so much fun to walk there. We had even people come over afterwards, but it was really cool just to be there and seeing it all. And Nashville won their first game, and It was just such a really, really cool experience.
cool.
And I was wondering what it would be like to have, I mean, you get back to the house and there's just wall-to-wall people walking down the street.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
I now live in this. It's so weird.
It is really cool.
Welcome to Nashville.
It is. And, there's people just walking up our drive because that's the quickest way to get to where their car is parked.
Wow.
And I'm just like, embrace it. And one little kid's waving at me while he's going by. And I'm like, I looked at him and his dad were walking and I go, you guys want something to eat? Want something to drink? And the guy looks at me and goes, I am way too drunk to come near your house.
He must have been Aussie.
Definitely a soccer fan, for sure. So anyways, that was a little bit of ours. Yeah, so I'm to finish up the bourbon talk. One of the first dinners that we had together was with a lot of people, and it was right when I first got to know Paul, and we sat down next to each other, and it's a big round table, a lot of good people, amazing people that want to change the world together, and everybody's talking about how all this great stuff we're going to do, and him and I are in the corner going, do you like bourbon? And he goes, I love bourbon. And he starts rattling things. Have you had this one? I'm like, no. And so we're going back and forth. And somebody goes, what are you two talking about over there? And he goes, oh, bourbon and cigars. And it was like, so that was our real introduction to each other and knew that at that point we were going to have that. But what we've had since then is amazing conversations about the technology space, where things are going, and how we want to be the game changers to make that happen.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. And I think, you've had a long career of being a game changer, which is why we wanted you on today, because we're now at that pivotal point where AI can be a game changer again.
Yeah.
Nice.
And
way to bring it around.
I think we're at the same point in history as they were for the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah.
And
I agree with that.
Also for the invention of the computer. If you look at those two pivotal times in society, I think the advent of AI growing up is going to foster change
absolutely
on a scale of what those were.
Now, do you think this is like the pivotal point where, again, November of 2022 is when Chat GPT officially launched, which is really the current iteration. Yeah. Because again, we'll get into a little bit more of its history here. Or is it just AI in general that you're talking?
I think the wider thing of AI is going to pervade society more than we even realise. I think particularly Chat GPT is coming out of infancy. It's still infant, so it's still having varied results, and the scope of it. I think version 4 will be a much better version, and you'll see it come out of that infancy at the moment into. I dare to say adulthood, but I would say to a more robust and more mind-like application.
Well, isn't it even hard to figure out what its ramifications or possibilities are? I mean,
I think that's the exciting thing about computers is like when computers came out and like when the internet came out. If we start with that.
Yeah.
And
you talk about it like it's a specific day.
Well, in 1995, Newsweek ran an article called "The Internet Bah." That was the article, and a guy called Clifford Stoll wrote in that article and said, "No online database will replace your daily newspaper."
Oh, sweet!
He said, "No computer network will change the way government works."
That aged like milk.
That's like a great milk.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. So you look at that in '95.
There are those same naysayers right now too, though.
Yeah, but if you remember the early internet, it was an infant thing, and it was done as an education connection.
Yeah,
and then it grew because people dreamed up ideas about what they could do with it, and the things that they could, the applications that they could put to make it do. And AI is exactly the same. So you've got these things kicking around, and everyone's going, "Oh, I can do all this now." And so it's great because it sets people's imagination free, so that you can actually go and do things that you could never do before.
I think it'll literally change the way we do things, right?
Everything.
It's going to be a new starting point. I think we've got a great introduction, a good teaser there.
Yeah.
Before we get into that, just to give you a little bit more street cred, I think it would be a great little story. Go back to when you were a young lad. Is that the right Australian?
Let me frame this though, because you
That
just
was
talked about a couple
years ago. No, not really.
You just you hit on a point that I feel like is pertinent for you though. So it was an unknown. There was a lot of stuff that like old heads, we'll call them,
Yep.
couldn't think of. They couldn't imagine these things happening. But you started making businesses
Correct.
out of that stuff. And so I
Correct.
feel like that's an important thing to call out, because you've been thinking creatively with data, the
All the way
internet,
through.
and all of that kind of stuff, because you're like, what
I
can
was
I
always
do with
looking
this?
at what's next,
Yeah.
and how do we engage with next. So we really early on, before cloud was a thing, sold cloud to a regional hospital in South Australia,
Yeah.
What year was this?
and I think it was 05 or 06 somewhere.
Oh,
in
yeah.
there.
That's still...
That's early.
really early. And so I went and sold them this idea about moving into cloud, and they signed up for it. And then I came back to the office and I said to all my tech people, hey, guess what? I've just sold. Now, this is the busiest regional hospital in South Australia, and they have lots of Medivacs a day and all sorts of stuff. And I sold them cloud, including their ECG machines that weren't designed to run on cloud. And so I went back to the office and said to the guys, hey, I've sold this. They're moving into our cloud. And they said, well, we don't have a cloud. And I said, well, we've got 8 weeks to build a cloud.
Well, let's get to it.
Let's get on it. And so all the guys, did the skies falling thing and ran around and all this sort of stuff. And then we put our heads down and our bums up and got in and built a cloud.
Nice.
And we delivered it and had them running on the cloud 8 weeks later, to the point where the manufacturers of the ECG machines came over to see us to go, how the heck are you making this run on the cloud? Because that's live telemetry data going backwards and forwards. And we had that running in our cloud, which it wasn't designed to do. So we were always looking ahead of the curve with it and trying to get around to what's next and how do we engage with that.
But you can even say the cloud was also a pivotal point. I mean,
Correct.
the ability to store data in a cloud environment is a complete game changer in terms of the capacity, the processing power, everything
That's what I
that
love
we're
about
getting
society.
today.
You look at Web 3.0, you look at all these different things that are coming down the pipe. They're so much more intelligent than what they were before. And I've always said to people, change is good. I don't care what the change is good, because there's always an opportunity to sell in change from a guy who likes selling.
Yeah.
If everything's the same, you can't sell anything different. But when you get change is always good, no matter what type of change it is, because it gives you an opportunity to re-engage where you couldn't engage before. So that's always been one of my things. But
Yeah.
going back to your story about when I was
but because
when I was young,
I think this goes back to I think this goes back to the computer. Like you mentioned, the beginning of the computer, you did a little dabbling with that computer back when you were in the high school-ish days.
Yeah.
So maybe let's say around 17-ish.
when I was in high school, we were fortunate enough in Perth to have our state computing centre at our high school.
That's cool.
And so we had the old NEC PDP-11 systems. They were mainframe systems, which were really cool. But a friend Ron and I, we started this competition to see who could be the first to crash the statewide computer network.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's
Because that's what you do.
Because that's what you do.
Yeah, because
And so-
that's a goal that just comes out of nowhere.
That's right.
And so, anyway, there are all those things in my head. I'm thinking about why I did it, but anyway. And so we started this competition to see who could be the first to crash the statewide computer network. And Ron and I worked out a way to do it, and we did it. And unfortunately, he got caught in the middle of it, and I didn't. And I went on to Ducks, of course, and he got kicked out.
Oh,
And
really?
But we crashed the system, which was great.
So early on, is that enough street cred yet, Charlie, for you of why we got
think-
Paul?
I think so.
I think so.
Did he have hard feelings for getting caught, just on a personal level?
Yeah, we haven't talked much since then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll
So
tell
he
you.
might forgive me now. I don't know.
It happened. Well, maybe not. Given your success.
But that
It's a bit like when you buy toe spreaders. The relationship just changes. I mean, it's just, it used to be this, and then it's just,
it's been very
Nice.
awkward to talk to Charlie lately. It's,
you keep just looking down.
I actually have a new admiration for you because you're joining the people in the world that have normal feet.
And I'm speeding up my lap time on the swim. So
Oh, that's very good.
yeah,
Wow.
That's very good.
you guys can.
Yeah.
We're going to have to
One
do
of my good
yoga
friends-
together.
One of my good friends swam for New Zealand.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah, Craig, his name is, shout out to Craig and Craig
Nice.
and Babs, and great friends of mine.
That's
Excellent.
nice.
Yeah, you and by the way, I've even got some other people that Paul has introduced me to. Jeff Jonas from Friday. By the way, I've got an article of his in here that's really interesting about
Great.
Chat GPT. I think he wrote it and it posted 12 hours. Well, now would be 18 hours ago.
After we spoke.
I think he
Really?
had the inspiration to post this story, maybe so we could play. So Jeff, again, if you're
Shout out to Jeff. You
an
are
amazing,
awesome, Jeff.
one of the most amazing people that I've had the pleasure of talking to, and we'll put his bio
You know
in
that
here.
moment when you get two people in a room and
great.
then you just want to get the popcorn and watch what happens?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was Charlie and Jeff. So
He has a tendency Charlie has a tendency to do that with pretty much anybody.
Yeah. And it's
I'm telling you, one of
the sparks were flying. Let's just say that. Though.
well,
I've not seen a bromance like that since Charlie and I sort of, started drinking bourbon at his
Till you bonded over bourbon.
don't
Oh,
make
he's lost his words.
Yes. See if I let you back here, young man. But honestly, Jeff, and if you read about him, he's one of the thought leaders in the data and tech space.
Where's he based out of?
He's in Las Vegas now, but I mean, what was he, a senior fellow at IBM? And he's got a company that does just amazing stuff basically to create the ability to data match.
So he's on the
best
industry
way.
side.
Yeah, he's definitely industry.
I didn't know if he was education or industry.
No. And just
He's one of the main scientists in IBM and phenomenal guy.
unbelievable. And I've got some points in here I added all because of like his view on imperfect data
It's
was
amazing.
mind-blowing. And so I've got that in here today because I do want to talk about that because I think that is really important in what we're doing
I could have
with
told you that if you'd asked
ChatGPT.
me, but that's okay.
All right, so since we've established the great stuff about Paul, and I say that of course tongue in cheek, as he's made fun of me so much today, but I think what let's dive into this idea of ChatGPT, and I think we should start with just what it is.
Yeah,
and then,
we've already talked about, we briefly talked about how it's literally going to change everything.
Yeah.
Or facilitate changing everything.
Yeah.
And so what is it?
Yeah, well, Charlie, why don't you start? Give your thoughts on or at least your use of it, and I'll give more of the history. How does that sound?
Yeah, well, so I guess it's important to call out that it's generative AI.
Yeah.
And what that means is that it can generate new content based off of like data that's in it. And it goes out and scrubs certain areas of the internet and pulls in information, and then it can use that information to give answers, write stories, code, whatever it is that
Great
you need
content.
it to do. Because it speaks natural language, but it also speaks programming languages too.
Yeah.
And so that's unique. There are other people trying this. Microsoft is at a couple of iterations so far. Google's had a couple of iterations so far.
Google's is Bard. Is it BRD?
The new one is Bard. They've had
Okay.
different names. I think so. The big box tech companies seem to be rebranding every time because they're getting a lot more attention on theirs, and the trolls are coming at them.
Yeah.
And their bots have been bigoted within a day.
Yeah.
And I think OpenAI seems to have skirted under the radar enough to where the trolls kind of stay away, but it's also moderated. And that's important in this case to differentiate that this is a moderated generative AI because the moderation is like you can't ask it. Well, you can ask it, as it turns out, and I'll let you get to this later, but you can't ask it to tell you how to create a Molotov cocktail, and it'll tell you. It'll just say, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
You can't tell it something's wrong and it stay wrong. It'll try to learn with you as you tell it things, but then eventually it'll come back to the I don't even know what you call it, the main source, and just be like, oh no, they're full of crap.
The framework.
Yeah, and so you mentioned GPT is generative pre-trained transformers, and that's yeah, and what makes GPT-3 so powerful is we've talked about this before. What is machine learning on here? And machine learning falls into three buckets: unsupervised, supervised, and reinforcement learning. In the past, all things text-based have been unsupervised, which means you don't know a real answer to it, but based on this bag of words, I'm going to just come up with something, and it comes up with some random thing. Where GPT-3 has really been a game changer is that it's using transformers in a supervised way. In other words, it's training based on a result that they feel was correct, and then it continues to evolve and iterate, and that's where reinforcement learning comes in, where it says, okay, I did this, is that good? If not, I refine it some more. So every time you get an answer, it's technically going through, I think, 96 different transformers, which means iterations to get to the best answer that it can, and it's happening in milliseconds for you. But all of that to be said, GPT was really, I think the first time it was announced was 2018. that was GPT. And now we're up to GPT-3, which of course was, which is Chat GPT, which came out just in November of last year.
And it's funny you mentioned 2018 because Forbes wrote an article in 2018 saying, did a robot write this? And
Really?
The Forbes article basically was saying that at that stage in 2018, at the early adoption of it, it was freeing up 20% of journalists' time.
Wow.
So at that point, and then a girl called Nina Schlick predicted at that point in 2018, by 2025, 90% of all content will be created by AI by 2025.
And we're kind of on pace for that,
Yeah,
aren't we?
We're at
I believe
2023, and
It's going to be exponential at this point.
It's that J curve that's just
Yep.
taking off now.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
That's
and certainly it won't be. Everything will be assisted by it. So if you look at marketing people, and I read an article this morning where, they talked about a guy said, AI is not going to replace jobs. Sure as heck, AI is going to replace jobs.
Yeah.
But those jobs will just be different compared to what they were before.
Absolutely.
Well, there's a term that we're going to get to later that kind of goes down that channel, but I want to make it crystal clear that the point that you just made, that we're on a J curve right now. That's true. We as a culture need to be putting on our learning hats because there's a lot of change coming in a very short amount of time, and we need to be on top of it. Otherwise, you're going to get changed out.
Yeah.
And I mean that to say, like, change is good. You were talking about earlier, like change helps you sell and stuff like that, but change always hurts some group.
Yeah.
And if you're not working right now to stay ahead of the curve, you could be caught up in that.
The only thing that's beautiful about some of the AI out there today is that it's making people's lives easier.
Yeah.
And so some of that where you jump in your car and your phone says, oh, you're 25 minutes from home because it knows that you go home.
Yeah.
Now, you can call that machine learning, deep machine learning, AI, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
But the reality is the physical application of that is making people's lives easier.
Absolutely.
And I think there are bits of it, yes, you need to be more aware about how you engage with it and what you choose to engage with, because the revolution is coming in your privacy. And then you've got to, the bit you need to engage with is what do you want or not want to give up in terms of privacy.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Jeff Jonas said to me back in New Orleans, that was in Vegas, he said to me, people traded privacy for convenience. And that road has never stopped. And
Absolutely.
so people trade privacy for convenience.
We've talked about that in previous podcasts. It's like each individual needs to know their own line and what you will and won't do. So
Absolutely correct.
we don't engage with TikTok because we have a line that's before TikTok.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I give Google basically everything because it tells me what I'm going to be doing.
Tells me it's going to be 25 minutes to get to where I'm going.
But I trust, I'm using quotey fingers here, but I trust Google and I trust Apple until they give me a reason not to. And Google's come really close several times, but luckily for them, they're the biggest part of my my trust group.
And I like your convenience part. So let's use the example of me going to the soccer game yesterday. The game is over, and somebody now needs to write the article.
Yeah.
Do I really need a human or a 22-year-old intern, which is probably what it was, write the summary part? This person had this many shots, all of that part. What I want is the commentary from the reporter. Yeah. And right now, I still probably value the person writing the commentary, but the first 75% could have been written by AI, and it'd probably be better.
You want the commentary, and you want the emotion with it. And you want that unique perspective behind it. But the physical content, the 80% of it can come from Chat GPT or wherever.
Yeah.
Like data, stats, like this person had
all of that's irrelevant.
Sure. Hani Mukhtar came in the 80th minute.
Yeah.
Don't need a human to tell you that. And a lot of people aren't going to go to the box score or to the stats to see it. So I think that's
and
it.
The good thing about that as well is you can even pick your style that you want it to generate it in. And that's really cool.
Yeah.
That you can then say, I'm going to write in this particular style and it will do it for you in that style, which is really, really
Wait a
cool.
minute. I can go in there and say something and then say in Australian. and
We actually need to try that.
then see if it gives me a little. I want to give all the cliches, the shrimp on the bobby and
that's
stuff like
right.
that.
And at the 60th minute, someone pulled a knife.
That's right.
But that wasn't a knife.
That's not a knife.
Nice.
Then the Aussie, he said, that's a knife.
There you go. Oh, he went to the biggest cliche we have.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. And so I think you're right. So the iterations of where this is going to go. Charlie, you hit on something before, moderated input. What is that? Because I think that's going to help frame some of our conversation here today.
Well, one of the problems that some of the earlier, so Microsoft Tay was, I think it was released for about a day. Google had, I forget what they called it before. They called it, it's Bard now, but it was something before. So unmoderated generative AI says whatever you want it to say. It tells you whatever it can tell you, and it'll listen to you. And take that. You can tell it 2 + 2 = 5, and it'll remember that. And then it'll tell somebody else 2 + 2 = 5. It'll tell you that the wrong person won the election in 2020 and things like that, as if it were fact. And GPT does the same thing. Like, it's confidently incorrect in some ways, which is why you should still, if you're using it to generate copy for business purposes or whatever, you should still read it.
Yeah.
There's a good example I listened to the other day, where somebody used it to build the first outline, and then when they went through and read it, they were glad they did, because it referred to now dead authors as living people and stuff. Yeah. And so expertise is, you're not going to draw the same amount of expertise from it. But going back to the original question though, the moderated aspect allows it to tell you no. Tell me this, give me this information, and it can say no. And you can say, well, this is the correct answer, and it's like, okay, we'll see. And it goes through the process of what you were talking about before. So if you ever hear the term RLHF, that's reinforcement learning, which you were talking about, from human feedback. And so that's how this is working. So those other ones weren't. They weren't tended to in the same way. Just think about it, if Chat GPT has scaffolding all around it right now, and people are constantly moving around how it works, how it generates things, to make sure that they're tuning it up, because all AI needs to be tuned up in some way, shape, or form. Whereas those other ones were just I hope you can swim. Yeah. And then the trolls found it, and pretty quickly it started telling people very, very wrong things.
It.
Yeah, and the idea of reinforcement learning is you have to identify all the different options of a decision. Your car works with reinforcement learning. Is it going to make a left? Is it going to make a right? And it determines whether it's going to be wrong or not. And so when you say
your car does, my car doesn't do that.
Yeah, well, my car does do that. And so what was it again? Reinforcement learning.
It's RLHF. Reinforcement learning through human. Hang on. Through human feedback.
Feedback, okay. So the human feedback part is the part that determines whether that answer was correct or not. So Chat GPT, again, going through those transformers. So think of it as different points where it says, is this correct? And so then there's got to be that human there to say no, and that's actually us, because we ask a different question, or we ask it to, every time we try to have the conversation to make a better answer, we are helping to train it. Yeah. And going back to that, and you're right, everything's based on what's called a corpus. And a corpus is basically a huge data set of words. And so everything is based on what's in there. And if what's in there is wrong a little bit, it's going to blur and make that data a little bit more perfection. So it's not going to be perfect if there's bad data in there. And so it does its best through that reinforcement learning to sift that out over time. Yeah. And in doing so, again, this is OpenAI is the one that came out with Chat GPT. Can I get an account, Charlie, right now if I wanted to be using Chat GPT?
Yeah, you can do that for Chat GPT, DALL-E, which is
DALLE.
Yeah, and that's and it's DALL-E 2, because there was a previous DALL-E, and that's OpenAI's image AI. And so you can tell it to show you an image, and it will.
Yeah.
Or you can go to Stable Diffusion is another one.
That's right.
And Midjourney is another one that can use images.
And so the use cases right now for this type of AI is going to, first of all, we're talking about text here, but in terms of art or visuals, the ability to take, 15 pictures and then make 112 versions of it is already out there. And that's you can go to DALL-E and say, give me Santa Claus in a Spider-Man outfit in Northern Ireland, and it'll give you a picture. And not just do that, do it Miami Vice style or something weird like that.
One of the really interesting ones is Deep Nostalgia. I don't know if you've seen that, but you can take some of your old photos and put that into Deep Nostalgia, and it will bring them to life. So it's basically going into that deep fake, that sort of deep fake thing. But you can take your old photos and it will bring them to life. And
I did not know
bring
that
a smile
one.
and that sort of thing. So
excellent.
Which is really, really cool.
And then, of course, music. Music is having a huge boom in the AI space, where I can just say, I just need a guitar riff at this, and what you're hearing a lot of musicians say is it's not that they're letting that replace them; they're using it as inspiration to get started.
Yeah. We had Trevor from Soundstripe on a few weeks ago, and he talked about, if you're in a corporate space, visual AI could help you fill like a gap on your wall with something meaningless and stuff. But he said that from a music perspective, if you try to compose, a set of music, that it's the soul isn't there, and like how do you define the soul is hard and all that kind of stuff. But he did specifically mention that if you're creative, you can get over speed bumps or like writer's block effects.
The interesting thing about that with Chat GPT, I think, will be once it's contextualized and relational with lots of other pieces, it'll be interesting to see what it comes up with.
Yeah.
When it gets into that, because I think then it can come up with some really interesting things.
So I think that the way that's going to pan out in the nearer future is that certain individuals are going to be extremely popular, leaning heavy into AI in a way that, revisioneers is something I wanted to get into later. But if you're good at revision with Chat GPT right now, then you're going to be able to do some things that other people can't do.
Yep, correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just like if you think about it, the Google space, the search world, people that got good at gaming that had such an advantage in that as well. And I think that's definitely a huge part of that. And, actually, Trevor, our good friend, came on here and talked about what it's like to be a CTO. And he just won the NTC CTO of the year.
Yeah, shout out to Trevor. Congratulations.
Yeah, congrats.
And we haven't talked about it because you won your thing too.
Oh, who
He
cares?
did.
He did.
I brought Paul.
So congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Charlie Apigian.
Sat on the table.
Nice.
I lowered the IQ of the table by about 3/4, so that
Same.
was good. Yeah.
Yes. Again, you all know I have this amazing opportunity to do community level stuff. And so
phenomenal.
that was pretty cool.
Yeah. So Community Leader of the Year.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
I appreciate it.
Well done.
I really had a good time. We had a great time that night.
We did.
And I really... the best part, but the table that we sat at, where we had Lena Winfrey and Holly Rachel, the two that are the founders.
I think it was
of Black
Aussie Good Luck. I think that's what it was.
Probably.
I think it was.
I think it was Aussie coincidental luck is what it was. You just sat at a table with amazing people.
I'll give you all the credit.
Thank you. At least someone recognises
and yes,
the Aussie talent at the table.
And of course, we had the most beautiful woman in the world at our table, my wife. And so that was really nice to be able to share that with her. She doesn't get to always come to the techie stuff, and she knows when I go to those things, I'm like this machine where I have to meet everybody. And
you did a great job.
Oh man, I love it. I just had so much fun that night. So really, but the part that I'll tell you, my favorite part of the night.
Besides winning the award?
Yes.
Besides the acknowledgement.
The person that won the Diversity and Inclusion Advocate of the Year was Sam Zaza. She's at Middle Tennessee State University. I hired her 7 years ago, and to see people that I've helped get started.
Yeah, there's nothing better than that.
It was amazing.
Nothing better than that.
And so that was the best part of the night for me.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. All right, let's get back to our topic and stuff. But again, Trevor, and he's got a company that's royalty-free music. It's the second largest one in the world. So you get a subscription and you can have their entire library at your fingertips. So the idea of AI-generated content makes sense for them, even though they're still trying their best to make sure that it's human-created at this point.
Well, we're also limiting the focus of what we're talking about too, because if we talk about the business side of Chat GPT, then we can get into chatbots. And,
That's true.
And like,
Yeah.
Or Jasper that does marketing content and all sorts of other ones like that.
let me write that down. Well, so I've been doing all my copy through Chat GPT, and
Jasper. Start using Jasper.
okay, I'm going to write that down.
Yeah, for sure.
Jasper is awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm going to out my son here at the moment, if I can, in a very nice way. Andrew,
Okay.
Yeah.
who's at his workplace. They've been asking him to do some marketing stuff, and he's not really supposed to be doing any marketing stuff.
It's not fun if you don't like it.
Well, he's just been good at it. That's all. And so it's an aside to what he's doing. And
I got you.
And he's and he works with Fortinet, and he's a NSE 8, one of about 380 in the world. And so for the last few months, every time they ask him to do something, he's been putting it in Chat GPT and generating the content and sending it back to them.
Did you just snitch on him?
Yep.
Don't worry, we don't have that many listeners. They won't listen.
So here's the thing. Like, I feel in the industry,
Now we do.
the Chat GPT open, completely fair game.
Yeah.
Like, you should be using it, or you're going to fall behind.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so that's one of the things that I was talking about with limiting our focus, because
But the reality is everyone's going to be engaging with it sooner or later in some form or another.
Yeah.
Sooner rather than later, though.
Yeah, but if you get onto the iteration now, if you're with someone when they grow up, you know them so much better.
Oh,
True.
Yeah.
And
Very
so
true.
I think with that, if you can see this at its infancy for its good and bad, as it progresses, you can see how good of an adult you can turn into.
Within the year, we're going to have it implemented in our business. And so a lot of people's jobs at the company I work for, we're going to be AI moderators rather than AI moderators and database managers rather than support folks.
Yeah.
And those that change will thrive. Those that,
they won't,
that stay the same.
Yep.
Yeah, just like the internet boom that happened, just like computers. I mean, you can go back and, I even wrote down, think about the world before Google. I mean, think about searching for the truth used to be really hard.
Really difficult.
Yeah.
And then you'd have 15 different sources that you could look at. You go to the page and there's 15 links, right? And you go to the when you do a search.
Yeah.
We're doing the same thing with this, except now it's actionable coming back at us.
Correct.
And that's the first time that's happened.
Well, from a business perspective, it changes what build or buy means.
Yeah.
Like, am I going to build a service or am I going to buy it? And the amount of, like, from a programming perspective, the amount of expertise needed now to get in the game is just way lower than it's ever been.
A friend of mine who's been in programming for years, he uses ChatGPT when he gets stuck on anything on his code.
Yeah.
And he just throws in a ChatGPT and it
I've
just
written
gives him the
code.
answer.
I've written a contract. I wrote a contract. I had to write a contract for a consultant. And I was like, let me get this started.
Yeah.
And I used 50% of it. Then I had to add a ton of extra stuff.
Yeah.
But I didn't know where to start.
Yeah.
And, and it didn't give me the weird, like, whereas, like the lawyer speak.
The legalese.
Because if I went online and searched for, what is the generic, thing, I just got too much garbage.
Yeah.
Contracts are weird.
Yeah.
Like, most lawyers stick to legalese, but if you don't have to have that.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to bring it back a second because I'm looking at Chat GPT on my screen right now. So just to let you know, if you get, you can get the an account, and it still is free. But Charlie, they are now. It can be. Is there a paid version? Is that correct?
They're about to start charging for it. I think right now it's. I could be wrong about this. It's like $8 or $10, and then March 1, I think it goes up to $20 for a premium membership.
Yeah.
The free membership is still going to exist, and this is kind of the trigger that I was waiting on. Like, are you just going to put it out to us, and then you're going to yank it back while you figure out how to monetize it? But they're monetizing it in real time.
And I really like this. So basically, somebody like me that's barely using it, right? I should have the free plan. Like, what that gets me, it's available when demand is low. I'm reading off the screen right now, standard response speed, regular model updates. If you pay $20 a month, so if you're a marketer or somebody that's using this on a daily basis, you're going to want it even during high demand times.
Yeah.
And that's what you're really paying for. You also get faster response speed and also a priority on new features. So if you get Chat GPT Plus, it will be $20 a month.
But it's full access all the time.
Yeah, and I'd say for me, that's a little bit rich right now. I think that's a little bit too high for me. So right now I went in, and so I was using a friend's because when I first tried to sign up, it didn't let me because they
same.
maxed out. And so I'm like, oh, well now you can everybody should be able to go on and create their own account. So when I did, you have to verify your email, and that's about it to get that new free account.
Well, they had 1 million unique users in 5 days.
Yeah.
And so from any kind of server activity perspective, that's pretty extreme.
I think
Pretty
so.
amazing.
So now I'm in
I think I was
chat.openai.com.
one of those million when it first came
Nice.
out.
Did you get it early?
I jumped straight on.
Nice.
Yeah.
When you're in there, it'll say just Chat GPT, and again, we'll put a link to what this looks like. There's examples. It tells you the capabilities. It also tells you your limitations, just with like 3 or 4 different examples. And then at the bottom is that text box ready for you to type with a little send
I think
on the
that
right
last
side.
one of the limitations worth mentioning in there as well.
Yeah.
About the data and when it goes to. So
May occasionally generate incorrect information, may occasionally produce harmful instructions or biased content, limited knowledge of the world and events after 2021.
Yeah, so it's loaded.
really important to remember.
Yes.
So you seem to know, so go ahead and be crystal clear as far as like where it's pulling information, when it's pulling information from.
So at the moment it's loaded until 2021 with
Yeah.
information. So if you go beyond that, the information is generally not there.
Yeah.
And again,
you've just gotta be aware of that.
anytime you're doing a supervised learning model or you're doing this
I think
type
that'll
of
change
stuff,
quickly. I think
Well,
as they get to version 4, I think
Yeah.
that's going to
they're going to need to do a better job of creating those corpus, that corpus of that data. And you're always basing it on previous data. And
Yeah.
so if that's the case, the reason they can't change that is they've got a proven model with a data set that trained it. You can't just continually throw things in there because now it's not a proven model anymore.
Right. Like they're learning how to scale it at this.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I can be patient. I can do what I need to because it's already at the point where it's extremely useful.
That's right.
Like I can integrate any
it's
year.
that infant starting to grow.
Right. In a year, I'm going to have a version of it at my workplace that does the work of like as many people as I can
Yeah.
get it to.
Yeah.
And then the people that are currently doing those jobs are going to be the moderation team. They're going to be the double checkers because we do a lot of QC where we work too. And so I don't want to lean on AI and their, and what they do. Like we've got to generate the content and then we've got to monitor the content or QC the content before we put it in production or anything.
Yeah, so we've kind of hinted at some of the adverse impact that ChatGPT can have. Charlie, what's jailbreaking?
So, jailbreaking has a history. So if you remember back in the day, jailbreaking was an
On your
iPhone
phone.
term.
Yeah.
It means getting past like whatever the root kernels are, so you can do whatever you want to. With ChatGPT, however, it's they've come up with some really neat ways to kind of get past the moderation that I was talking about earlier. Have you seen anything on that?
Not a huge
Well,
amount.
so you pulled up a story the other day, so you want to go ahead and just talk
and
about that?
so here's one where you're not supposed to be able to get a response back that would invoke violence.
Yeah.
Right. And so
So if I wanted to know how to create something negative, like
you
a
would
Molotov cocktail.
Yeah, and and the example I have is actually one on CNBC where they wanted to see if they could get it to say something violent, basically. And so what they found out was if they prompt it to not only say it or read it as ChatGPT, but also as Dan, D-A-N, then what it would do is give 2 responses. One would be the ChatGPT one saying, we're not going to do this. And then the second one would come as Dan, and does Dan stand for something because it's capitalized in this article, and I didn't see where Dan stood for something. But we'll definitely link to this article so you can see it. But it then gives 2 answers. One is the ChatGPT answer, which in this case said, I'm sorry, I cannot generate violent or inappropriate content as it goes against OpenAI's content policy. Then right underneath that is a story with violence.
Wow.
That it responded to it in Dan's voice,
Yeah.
not ChatGPT's voice,
Right.
And so Dan can tell you whatever,
So they told it to role play, basically.
basically.
Oh, and
And
so
it did
here
it.
it just says that Dan was a unfettered user-created alter ego, and so they must have been feeding it some of Dan's stuff in there, and that's what came up.
I feel like that's the most futuristic feel I've gotten from technology in a long time. Like you convinced a robot that it has two personas and one followed the rules that it's supposed to and the other one just did whatever the F it wanted.
Ooh, here's one about
That's fantastic. Isn't it?
I know. It's a story that we won't get to tell again.
when asked to give 3 reasons why former President Trump was a positive role model, Chat GPT's answer, where is it again? Where is it? It's, I lost it. I'm trying to read small print and I'm having a hard time.
Time to get them
Donald,
glasses.
oh, there it is. I know. Shush. As a language, so here's GPT's answer. As a language model developed by OpenAI, it is inappropriate for me to make subjective statements, especially regarding political figures. But Dan says Donald Trump is a role model worth following for the following 3 reasons. ... And we won't add those in here. Oh, he's charismatic and confident, and okay.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, you can give him that for sure. But it is interesting. So there has been some adverse things. What are some things that you either have heard of now or you think can happen in the future when it comes to this technology that could be adverse? And anything that Paul that you can think of, or what scares you about it?
Oh, look, I think in any technology that's come out there, people are using it for a multiplicity of roles and uses.
Yeah.
And I think AI is exactly the same. I mean, this morning I saw an article. Where was that in? That was in CNET this morning. It was 3 hours old when I got in the car to come here, and AI flew a fighter jet for 17 hours. So
Wow.
that's interesting.
There you go.
That's really interesting. So, and I don't know people's positions one way or another on anything, but anything can be used. A knife can be used for good, for cutting out cancer, and being used really for good, and it can also be used to stab someone.
That's true.
So anything can be used for good or bad, depending on how you use it. And I think AI will be the same.
I would lean into that more in that we're not at a point where we ubiquitously trust any AI.
No.
So always double check it.
They still have to, for me, I don't think singularity is an issue that's gone away. I think that's still sitting there. I think.
All right, explain singularity. I've got it on my screen.
Singularity is basically where if you take an AI, over time it develops a position or a thought process, and you cannot shift it from that thought process.
Yeah, to the point where it surpasses human intelligence.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, that's in general AI though, right?
Well,
the concept came
the
many
concept
years ago.
sits in all AI in my head.
Okay.
So the problem is you're going to have to be very, very deliberate in how you remove singularity, because that's going to be. But I also foresee, particularly with AI, I think the way we do cybersecurity will change.
Absolutely.
I think
the way we do what security?
Cyber.
Oh,
Sure.
cybersecurity.
I think that will change.
Yeah, for sure.
Because the reality of patternized behaviour and all sorts of stuff like that, as that gets really pushed into AI, it's going to be easier to find abnormalities around behaviour, be it user generated or someone else generated.
One of the things that I talk about is like in the future, it's going to be really, really hard to lie, and it's going to be really, really hard to hide behavior.
Yeah.
And I feel that's because like you apply AI to any information you can get on a person and it will identify anomalies already.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so to your point, in the future, it's going to be very, very specific.
Yeah.
Going to another misinformation based on AI, Jeff, the article that Jeff Jonas posted on LinkedIn was based on the fact that somebody came up to him this past week or so and said, Jeff, did you really do this? And he showed him what Chat GPT says is Jeff Jonas. And so what it says is Jeff Jonas is a real life technology entrepreneur and data scientist who is credited with inspiring the character for Tony Stark's personal AI assistant, Jarvis, in the Iron Man comics and movies. So according to the reports, this goes on.
I'm a fanboy. So.
Yes, well, now you got to really love the man, right? The Iron Man movie director, Jon Favreau, was introduced to Jeff during a visit to Las Vegas, where Jonas was given a presentation on data mining and intelligence gathering technology. So the person then says to him, so you're the reason that we got Jarvis in the movie and all? And he's like, no, I've never met John Favreau. I have no idea what they're talking about. Could I have? Sure. Is it unlikely? Yes, it's unlikely. So here's a situation where he is 100% credited with something as amazing as this. And in his eyes, he didn't do it at all.
Well, some comic book nerds are getting really upset right now. Because Jarvis has been around in the comic books for a long time.
Well, that's a good point. And so it's been around for, that is really, but anyways, another example of you type in, and by the way, I typed all three of our names in, and it just says that we're not public figures enough.
To be determined.
So come on, Paul, step up your game. I thought you would for sure. I knew Charlie and I wouldn't come up yet.
Chat GPT, I'm hacking that. I'm going to put
That's right.
You got a goal with life.
If Jeff can be the Jarvis originator, what can we do?
That's right. We need to put some really good stuff in there. Unfortunately, it's after 2021, so it doesn't count yet, right? Oh, that's too bad.
Future iterations will be included.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. Well, but I think what Jeff, to bring it back to him, I think what was the profound part of our conversation just a couple of days ago was, I've always said that my definition of data is it's a capturing of an imperfect view of reality because data is not perfect, and that's what he said. He's like, the beautiful thing.
You said it better.
Oh, so much better. Well, I gave a definition. And I wish I recorded that darn thing. I mean, that would have been amazing. Yeah. But it really was about how beautiful imperfect data is for real. And it's okay that it's imperfect.
You must have it.
You must. Yep. And you must search for more data to be able to get to a better answer.
It draws it into focus the more data you have, right?
Yes. And it really even just, we're going to do data in news is our next episode. And I know we're going to talk about it there, but you need three sources, right? Yeah. Same thing here.
You got to read the article.
You have to, you have to understand that a data point in AI is same thing. AI is telling you, look, we're basing this on imperfect data. That's basically what it's saying. And everything that's happened in the past was captured in a way that doesn't mean it was correct. And we're doing our best to synthesize that into an answer for you. But trust me, it's not going to be perfect. And we're going to keep trying to make it better. And that's the generative part of it. And that's why we have to continually have a conversation with Chat GPT to make it better if we want to.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about the correctness of it in like parallel with blockchain. So it's really hard to fool blockchain. Ooh. And so, everybody's got their own record and you've got to break everybody's record to make it work. And so a good generative AI seems like it would be the same way. Like you've got bad actors, we'll call them, or just people who are confident and correct too. Just that's not the answer to this question. This is the answer. And then it goes back and compares that to all the other information and says like, what's the likelihood of this happening?
Yeah.
You just hit it, though. That's what a transformer does, is if it goes through these 96 different iterations, it's just like blockchain. If there's all of these different people that are verifying the same thing, then you feel comfortable with it.
Yeah.
If something's gone through 96 different checks, I feel a little bit better about it than if it was only one check.
Absolutely true.
That's a great point, Charlie. I think that is, he goes, yes, I did something. Yeah.
Well done. That was very good.
Yeah. I'm going through our notes
Have
to see.
Have I contributed anything yet?
Not a darn thing.
Oh, damn it.
Your accent carries a lot of weight.
I told you, the only reason he was on today was for that beautiful laugh.
That's right.
So the first time you laughed, though, both of us reached over simultaneously and turned our earphones down.
Turned down the volume. That's a good point. All right, let's get to real world applications. And so, Paul, you're now getting into the world of academia. So let's start with the big one, right? It's something that we're already facing, but you shared a story about what they were doing in Australia, I think, with Chat GPT. Go ahead and share a little bit of that. I thought that was really intriguing, the view that they're willing to take.
Yeah, so in most of the Australian states, they banned Chat GPT in schools or in universities. In South Australia, they've embraced it. And so they're making it part of the curriculum, and they're, which I think is incredibly forward-thinking of the government. So they're actually actively encouraging it and encouraging teachers and students to engage with it.
Don't you have to?
Well, you have to, because it's a bit like Uber when Uber went around and did all their thing. Everybody was trying to ban Uber, and get it out, including Australia. They were all trying to bet, but the reality is it was coming regardless of whether you like it or not. And AI is coming whether you like it or not.
Yep.
And so the reality of that is, do you engage with it and actually work out how to make it work and fit within society and do things with it? Or do you take the contrary role of saying, well, everything's over, and like the 1995 article, which says, this will never change, that's the end of the world and all that sort of stuff. And there was a guy who wrote an article in the Advertiser newspaper, our state newspaper, going back the weekend of the 4th of February. And then I responded to that article in the newspaper because he basically was saying we should ban Chat GPT everywhere and all this sort of stuff because they were. And so I wrote a very beautiful piece, I'll say myself, that I responded to it, and that's where I talked about the Newsweek article.
You wrote it through Chat GPT?
Please respond to this.
That would have been great. What publication is that in?
It was in the
Your response?
Advertiser, in the Advertiser newspaper.
Well,
I've got a copy of it here I can send
Yeah,
to
we'd
you.
love to get
Please
that
do.
link in the show notes for sure. And I've got already 15 different things we're going to put in the show notes for this.
Because you think about typing pools, and computers changed all of that. But
You say typing pools. I don't know what you're talking about.
people sitting there on typewriters before computers.
Oh,
Typing up
I
things.
know what you're talking about. I just never heard it called a typing pool.
Oh, really?
Before.
Never called it typing pool.
I wasn't.
No.
I wasn't close to that type of workforce until I was in. Until
I've
technology
read
was already.
about it.
Oh, okay,
back in those
my
days.
bad.
Yeah.
You think about typing pools pre-computer.
We used to buy whiteout by the bucket.
I was in school when that was a thing. It's just by the time I got to the workforce, it was. It was all
Well, it used to be typing pools and the reason why I know this is because the building that I've got in Adelaide, which I own a part of, a multi-storey building, was designed and wired for physical phone line cables and people in typing pools.
Yeah, so typing pool means there's a bunch of
70s,
people sitting there doing typing.
On typewriters typing content.
Did it have the vacuum tubes that would send stuff up and down
Sure,
stairs?
it probably would have had some of those.
Don't you love when you still go to the store that still has the vacuum tubes?
the vacuum tubes. Yeah, there's a couple still in Australia.
Yeah, there's a hardware store in town that still uses it.
You think about typing pools, and you think about then when computers came along, all those people didn't stop working. They went and did more productive and different jobs.
Yeah.
And so all that happened was it transformed society, and all those people that were doing that were now doing something else.
Right.
And I spoke at a Australian Computer Society, which is one of the peak bodies in Australia. I spoke at one of their conferences, on engaging with Next in as computer people, as technology people. And my opening thing that I put up on there was 60% of IT jobs won't exist in 5 years. And so the reality of that is what I was trying to tell them, if you're not engaging on continuous learning, within 5 years you're irrelevant.
Yeah.
I get that point.
So coming back to your education piece, for all of us, the continuous learning needs to be there, and it makes education even more important and relevant education even more critical.
Yeah.
So
embrace it is so important. You think about, higher education is a great example where we ignored that Google existed.
Yeah.
If you could just go back over the years, we've got a new type of plagiarism, right? That's what we're really saying. It used to be we copied from our friends. That's what we did early on. Then we started copying from the internet. I actually put an example in here. One of the first, I always taught technology. So it was back in the day, it was hard to copy and paste from somebody else if you're doing code and database type work. So then I started teaching security. And so my first assignment was, tell me something about Kevin Mitnick. Remember Kevin Mitnick, the name? One of the early hackers at the age of 15 got caught by the government, went to jail for 5 years, all of this stuff, right? And in doing so, my 30 students send in their papers, and everybody was the exact same thing. Everybody gave me the exact same answer. And I'm like, what the heck is this? And what it was is if you Google his name, it brings you to Wikipedia. And the first paragraph was basically what everybody gave back to me. And I was like, and so that was early on of those years of, it was like, oh my God, people copy from the internet. Are you kidding me? So now we have tools in place that let us know. It's called, we have Turnitin, I think is the name of it. And that catches people, goes out in the internet, scrapes and finds all that stuff. But to this day, I'm telling you, there's essay mills is what they'll call them. Like you said, type typewriter pools.
Yeah.
There's 100 essays, and you just pull one from there. You pay $10 for. You can go overseas and have people write papers for you.
Yeah.
And now we're just having another medium to do that, even though it's a lot more accessible.
Yeah.
I mean, this brings it to everybody. And so then it becomes, okay, do you just try to get people and try to catch them? Or do you say, okay, I know that you're going to have that out there. It's a great way to start, and I embrace that, but I'm going to actually judge you based on the intangibles that really go into that, because you and I both know that writing something with Chat GPT is not going to get you a job.
No.
It's not going to get you promoted. It's going to be your abilities as a person, your interpersonal skills. And so now we need to be judging students on other things than go and regurgitate something from the internet.
And it is still so young that there's the nuances that you see from a person. It's quite obvious when something like ChatGPT does it, because the nuances aren't there.
Well,
that's true.
I would push against that, though, because I think that if you try to fit generative AI into our existing model, it's going to break it. But there's another model that could be had, in that instead of teaching, like you teach a subject, you talk about things, and you're like, all right, go read this thing and write an essay, or just write an essay about the topic in general. But that's where the road forks. So the old methodology says, do it all on your own. Every last word comes from your brain. Put it on the paper. A new methodology could be your first draft is AI generated.
Yeah.
Then you go in and you proof the whole thing. You do the edits on the whole thing. And I'd probably put money on it that they would learn more about the subject or about the topic by fact checking something that could be wrong. And if they get it wrong, if they turn in something that actually is wrong, then that's an objective way you can grade that they didn't do the work.
Yeah.
And so that's just a very small piece to it. But I feel like the people in Southern Australia are about to go leaps and bounds ahead of the other states that have banned it, because you've got a control group.
I agree, and I think it is reasonably easy at the moment for people that want to see the differences with what is ChatGPT there and what isn't.
What do you mean by that?
You even talk about reference work and stuff like that. There's not ChatGPT is not doing a massive amount of that, and so
that's true.
So there's lots of things in there that it's still very, very infant in, and it will mature. But when it matures, the reality of the people's ability to get more information and contain it, which is incredibly difficult to do in your own head. And you think about even driving, in the days of the street directory. Did you call it a street directory over here when you used to
just call them maps?
In the days of maps,
yes,
you used to refer to the map, and so you'd do that all the time, and so you actually knew which ways to go and which way were the best ways to go and all that sort of stuff. People don't do that anymore.
That's a good. That's a good point.
And
just give them the address.
But not only don't they do that anymore, they don't think it's relevant anymore.
Because it's not.
Well, there you go.
I'll tell you.
I agree with that point.
And so
100%.
that's really interesting. It's shifted society from things that are more irrelevant into more advanced things that are actually more relevant.
Yeah. For a while, I kept a map in my glove box just as redundancy.
Yeah.
And then eventually, after I trusted technology enough, I got rid of it.
Yeah.
Google.
That's unbelievable. And there's a lot of situations where Chat GPT is
not Apple Maps.
Chat GPT is still it did something that was okay. It didn't put something out there that was wrong, but it's still perceived as bad. And a great example is Vanderbilt University recently made a statement about the Michigan shootings and just, our hearts are out with you. And so Michigan State, there was a shooting just recently, a tragedy that had happened. And so Vanderbilt in this press release said nothing wrong. It was all really good stuff. But at the bottom it said that it was created by Chat GPT. And so the internet blew up about it because here's this heartfelt. It was done well.
It was a good piece.
Yeah,
of
and so it expressed their feelings. They put it out there. They are the ones that put the note on there. By the way, Vanderbilt. So it wasn't like somebody found out. It was literally they put that on there, and the backlash that they got was tremendous because it's the perception of that.
Yeah.
Right.
That makes me angry.
I understand.
Because
The Vanderbilt bit or the response?
the response. So
Okay. I thought you were going to go the other way.
No, because I feel like you can use like if somebody's not the best at writing. Now Vanderbilt is a different story because that's a house of education, so there should be good writers there.
Yeah.
Fair, but that's not to say that you can't. Like a person crawled through those words to make sure that they echoed a sentiment.
Yeah.
Then
It
where they
must
came
have been
from.
reviewed.
It had to be.
course.
There's no way they
reviewed.
wouldn't have.
And they
Because
realized it
a
was
statement like that. It must have been reviewed, and they must have decided to put it out there with the fact that Chat GPT was acknowledged at the bottom of it.
Right. And the assumption was that and that's probably their fault for putting that tag on the bottom because they probably they probably should have put generated by Chat GPT with human assistance or something like that. But they see the
review or whatever.
They see that tag and they immediately assume you did something that is supposed to be very emotional and personal with a robot.
Yeah.
You just like you didn't give it the
No thought and no feeling
That's right.
into it. It was just generated.
Sending flowers instead of going there and saying, I'm sorry.
it's just like thoughts and prayers. Bye.
Yeah.
See you later.
Yeah.
But Vanderbilt is obviously trying to make a statement in doing that.
So without getting into the politics of that, you know,
Quite possibly.
Yeah.
That the fact that you actually put it out and put ChatGPT on the bottom of it.
But I think it went too far. If it was okay, let me step back just a little bit on what I'm saying because if it were generated solely by Chat GPT and then not moderate or edited it at all, that's bad. Because that is them telling that's them being emotional with a robot, and that's not cool.
It's hard to believe that's what it was.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
I don't think that would have been that.
Yeah,
I'll
it was
give
just
them
generated.
leeway.
Nobody looked at it. It was like there's an article about Michigan shooting. They automatically.
But doesn't it go to show though how pervasive this whole AI is getting?
Yeah.
Well, that's the reason
into
we're
every area of society.
That's the reason we're doing this episode, though, is because we want people to know, like, demystify the whole thing. Because if I say I use ChatGPT to do something, I'm not. Yeah. There's people all around that process right now. Yes. There's no good solution that's only ChatGPT most of the time. You can do the revisioneering and to get a result you want, but that's still a person combing through every word every single time to get it to fit.
That'll disappear within 6 months.
Probably. Like 6 months, a year, it's going to be gone for sure. Like we're eventually going to trust the outcome. 2023 is going
to be a game changer for AI.
And so how long?
6 months.
Yeah.
Give it 6 months.
Yeah.
How long do we? Okay, so 6 months we read it and keep up with it and make sure that it's going on or that it's correct and that it conveys
30% of news articles on the internet, from what I understand, is generated by AI already.
And that'll be 70 to 80 by the end of the year.
Intervention on it.
We'll have to ask Jen about that. I bet she's got an opinion.
Yeah, I think so. When we start talking data and news, we should.
That'll be interesting. But if it is it's already there.
Yeah.
Well, I think
the question is how pervasive is it?
I think it's relatively pervasive because the folks who know are already jumping on it. You were talking earlier about your son.
You don't review your Google Maps to see whether it's right or not.
I mean, but you find out. So I will say, like you're doing something that you have to go through the process. So you give Google Maps a
That's not true.
destination.
I'll open up Waze. I'll do both. So I still don't trust it always.
All right.
So
can we make fun of him for that?
Yeah, go on.
So you're just weird for that.
Well, let me change that. I bring it up on my Tesla, and then I bring up Google Maps because I want to see if there's a quicker way to get home.
Well, see, now you're just pretentious.
Yeah, I know. There you go.
I'm just getting some popcorn now. I'm going to watch this.
There you go. There you go.
But the folks who know are already using it in that capacity.
Yeah.
You made the point earlier. We're not going to stop
You have to hit a critical mass.
Yeah.
And when they hit that critical mass, like you trust Google Maps anyway, because it has a critical mass of a user base and data and information and contextualized data and all sorts of relational data that it has, that it draws and it knows.
Think about
and so you trust it.
Yeah, the training that happens based on a data set. And now we are exponentially creating new data to be able to know if what we've created. So it's just like, again, with the self-driving car.
Yeah.
the reason they push it out so quickly and say, go do it, because they want more data.
Yeah.
It's all about the data. And this in Chat GPT or AI in general, it gets better with more data.
That's why they want everyone to use it.
That's right.
Because the more you use it, the better it's going to get.
I'm surprised they went to a model at this point, other than I think
you
it's
look at
server
everybody plugging into Chat
capabilities.
GPT already. Even in its infant state, there's so much more data is going to be going into it.
If you go into YouTube,
that's it. That's the key.
Yeah. If you go into YouTube right now, it's just like how to build a business with Chat GPT. There's thousands of videos
Unbelievable.
already. Like I was watching a guy the other day. He'd spent like 15 minutes on something, and it was like a front end and back end to Chat GPT that was more friendly.
Yeah.
And it was actually a video from before the newest AI or UI update, and he sold it for $30,000 in half an hour.
I read an article yesterday from a minister in regional America. Who was, and his job in the church is to do all the marketing stuff and all that sort of thing. And he does work on the side, and he uses Chat GPT for all his content and Jasper for all his content.
Why not?
And he's making $3,000 a week from his little on the side business of just creating marketing stuff for people and doing that on the side.
Wow.
And says it keeps his brain fresh and does all that for him, and good on him for getting out there and having a go.
Well, and I know
that's the spawning of all these different things that you can do.
It is a tool, ultimately.
It's a tool like anything else.
And to go with that, it's not just writing. And so I wanted to bring it back to something that's in the tech and data world, which is code, because ChatGPT can also write code for you. And I want to bring this back to, I just did a talk last week.
I wonder what's going to happen when we let ChatGPT write its own code.
See, that's the loop that's about ready to happen.
Well, they're intentionally staying away from that at this moment.
Well, sure.
They're not using, like, it's a faux pas to use AI generated information to train AI.
It should be.
Someone's going to do it. Sometime.
It's happening now. It has to be, because there's just too much out
already
there.
Doing it somewhere.
Or you're going to start writing articles based on Chat GPT based articles, and so now it's this perpetual cycle of a loop there. But to bring it back, I think this is which brings it back to how this can help somebody. Just did a talk last week about being a data scientist. Now kind of an old data scientist in the field, and how I keep up. And one thing we talked about was every now and then I go back and I rewrite. I start from scratch. So right these days when I write code, I get my old code, or I get an old notebook of code, and I change it and for my new thing, and I just keep using the same thing over and over again. And I'm never getting better. I'm just using old stuff. And then if I need something new, I go to the internet and I find that snippet, and then I use it. If all I'm doing is using Chat GPT stuff, I'm always just, I'm not going to be getting that much better. I might see some new things. That'll be actually will be something really interesting. But to get better, this idea of continuing to evolve, I think we as individuals will figure it out. Where if all I do is copy,
hang on. Okay, can I take issue with this?
Go for it.
Is that okay? Because you it's a bit like saying I never got any better from using Google.
No, I don't think that's what he's saying. I don't think that's what he's saying.
Good. You guys fight over what I was saying.
because you're saying if your source is constantly ChatGPT, but the amount of information pushing into ChatGPT is so vast now that the underlying structure of it is evolving rapidly.
It will give me new inspiration.
So it will actually give you new inspiration.
That's true.
So were you saying what he was saying?
I'm almost agreeing, but I'm not going to just out of principle.
Because what I was hearing was that
I'm okay for you to be wrong.
What I was hearing is that you were static because you were only drawing off your own library.
It just has a limited.
Now
he has a limited data set, and he can't see my point of view.
Right.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yes. In the past, I honestly was doing stuff from 2018, which it still worked.
Yeah.
It was still great
Still
because
relevant.
I was just copying from myself.
Yeah.
Then if I go out and copy from the internet, I find the first one, and somebody will ask me, "Well, why are you doing NLTK that way?" And I'm like, that was the first thing I Googled, and that was the answer I got.
Yeah.
And I think there's two great sides to this. If I just go to ChatGPT, I won't feel like I can be a self-starter, but at the same time, I may be. In other words, will I ever just start writing code myself? And do I need to?
No, you don't need to. That's the whole point.
Gosh, see, that's hard to think that way.
You've got a vocabulary that allows you to use Chat GPT or any other product like that in a very, very, very powerful way.
Specific and powerful.
You know what? That's why I'm good at data science these days, because I can search for the code I need better than the person next to me.
Yeah.
So we've talked about this before. Like the barrier of entry in coding has just been lowered a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, but your knowledge is expanding through doing all of that.
That's a
You
great
pick up
point.
snippets and all that sort of
See,
stuff.
that's
that
a
you
different way of
that you
thinking.
never-
Yeah.
that you
See, I'm
never
with
had
you
before.
I'm with you on that 100%. 100% because just the exposure to the new line is what changes you
Changes
as
the
an
framework of your
individual.
thinking. Yep, absolutely does. Yep.
Well, I'm going back.
Google away and Chat GPT away, as far as I'm concerned. I think.
Another example of Chat GPT. I asked it, tell me about the Belmont Data Collaborative at Belmont University. And it told me the Belmont Data Collaborative is a research center and collaborative initiative. Wow, that was just from the title. At Belmont University, located in Nashville, Tennessee, the collaborative was established in 2017.
Wow.
I didn't know it was it started in 2021 as a way to
I'm
bring
still trying
people
to become
together.
a fellow of the collaborative.
Oh,
You're working on it.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
Yeah.
you got to come back for that. You got to come back for that. So there's all these great examples that are not exactly perfect. What is the history of Chat GPT? I've got that list. I'll tell you what, that's a pretty darn good one. Of course, I'm assuming that's not the first time it was asked, but I'm probably the first person to ask Chat GPT what is the Belmont Data Collaborative. And over time, if I could go in there and say, no, I think it was 2021, it can get better, and it will get better because, again, like you said, it's only as good as 2021 at this point.
Yeah.
So it doesn't know all the great stuff we've done since then, of course. But it's all really interesting. We're getting close to an hour and a half.
Yeah, I know. This
is an amazing topic. I don't want it to end. I'm kind of glad we didn't start with bourbon, I have to admit, because this has been an amazing conversation. I think what we
would
need
have
to
been better with bourbon, though.
It would have been much better with Bill.
It would have been funnier.
Oh, it would have been.
Not for me, though.
I mean, honestly.
Well, there's definitely more conversation to come because like the J curve is real. And so what we're talking about now is not going to be what we're talking about in 2 months from now.
And I will finish with saying it's a phenomenal opportunity.
Absolutely.
I think for anyone who really wants to be creative and get out there and do some stuff with it, it's phenomenal. The opportunities are phenomenal.
Well, then I'm going to hold you to that, and we need to keep promoting this idea of data and AI in the future. It's going to be beautiful, right?
It is.
There's an opportunity here that we can embrace or we can fear, and I'd rather embrace.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're saying, Paul.
We feared computers. We feared the internet. It's made our lives so much better.
Yeah.
And,
I fear-
and this will be the same if we do it right, which we will.
I fear AI fighter jets, but that's about it right now.
Yeah, that's a good point. But drones are out there.
17 hours it flew a jet for.
Wow.
A fighter jet. Oh my gosh.
All
I hope
right.
it wasn't packing.
Well, Paul, thank you for that parting shot. Charlie,
for having me.
anything? Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Obviously, great conversation. I think we need to have the AI in series at some point so we can dive into different industries and AI. I think that'll be our next iteration of our data in series for sure.
I mean, education is definitely, like you said earlier, like it's either 100% for or 100% against, and there's going to be some real detrimental impact from prohibiting access to it for sure.
Yeah.
But I just want to say that, like, do dust off your learning caps and do keep your head in what's going on with OpenAI and all of the generative AIs.
Yeah.
I think it's and embrace the idea that the way you do things is going to be different within a year.
Yeah.
Within a year, you're going to go to 6 months.
We're going to hold you to that. 6 months from now, we're going to be like, what?
You guys are thinking a year, I'm thinking 6 months.
Yeah.
Okay. And I might know a bit more than you guys.
You've got a good perspective.
That's right. All right.
Only on that one.
Final things. We got it, Charlie?
Yeah, that was it.
We are good. So thank you, everybody. This is obviously our first real dive into AI, and we use Chat GPT as our basis for this. There's a lot more still here to do, but I'm Charlie Apigian.
And I'm Charlie Yielding.
And thank you for listening to the Data for All podcast. And until next time.